Good morning. I'm live testing. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm here. It's been a bit chaotic. We've taken a few side quests here and there, but I think that's the fun part of the crafting journey. I've definitely gone on a crafting adventure recently. Hit all the pitfalls. I broke a needle. I kept the needle. It's right here for a reminder. On my finger. Late night, I was trying to get some ruffles done. Wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. And honestly, my mood very much affects my sewing. When I'm in a sad or bad mood, yeah, I can tell. But it also helps me keep my mood in check, believe it or not. Anyways, we're here, we're crafting, and we're getting back to the weird Townscape cone cape project. Whatever I'm going to actually end up calling that mouthful of a project. It's hanging up just out of view over there. It's not behind me because I'm running out of space behind me. Okay, I have not pulled this stuff out in a hot minute. It's been a bit. But we're back and we're here. And the goal for today, okay, is to get all our layers of the cape sewn together. The crinoline layer, the cage layer, the structural layer, that's still going to stay separate. So that layer with the boning in it is going to be its own layer. What am I talking about? We have not seen this project in a minute. Let me go grab it real quick. It's been a minute since I've worked on it. You guys remember this thing. I don't need this part today. Not working with it at all. Let me go put it back out of the way. I don't want to crush it, so I'm hanging it up. I have it hanging upside down on clippy hangers. Okay, let me see what is all this craziness. This black line used to mark where the road went. I took a picture of it. So now we can just go out of the way for the moment. That goes in that bucket. Okay, I'm here. So we should have 3 layers. Let me actually point the microphone at where I'm talking so that you guys can hear me better. Oh, somebody's saying the audio is a little on the low side, so I will definitely be talking into the microphone. Okay. So, it's been a minute since I saw this project. Let's see what we have going on here. I have 2 pieces of collar. I'm going to put those to the side for the moment because I'm going to repress those, and I have my ironing stuff right there. Okay. Collar over there. We have the lining that has the facing attached. We have the interlining, which is the cotton layer, which is the canvas drop cloth. And then we have the outer layer, which is the beautiful green wool. So when we build the sandwich, we have to make sure our layers are in the right order, so when we flip it out, inside out, they're all in the right order. And sometimes I have to say these things out loud, so you guys are here to join me so that I can, if I screw this up, at least I can rewind it and go, oh, yep, I can see it now. But this ugly layer is supposed to be in this middle. This is my This is my outside layer. This is my inside layer. So And then there's insides and outsides and right sides and wrong sides. All right. Here's my green cape, right side out. So I'm going to turn it inside out, so the right side is on the inside. And then, oh good, I pressed it. I pressed these seams. I might still go back through and press them again. Then inside that layer would be this one next. So, structurally speaking, I think I want the smooth layer of cape this way. And then my inner lining on top of. So if I sew this all together and then flip it inside out, this would be inside out. So this piece needs to get flipped. Inside out. Right side. Right side. Okay. The layers matter, and which way they're facing really does matter. It looks like I'm a crazy person just kind of talking to myself about like, oh, this layer should be inside out and this layer should be right side out, and then yeah, I think I have them in the right order. Okay. Good morning, Dan Does Junk. Good morning, Michael Snell and James Spokes. Welcome. Michael Snell, the flower dress in the background is very pretty. Thank you. I made that myself. These are all my side quests and projects that I have been working on instead of the things that I'm supposed to be working on because it's cheaper than therapy. So I'll have to show you guys the crazy journey I went on there, but I want to at least get this started. Get my brain here, and then we can go back over there because this has been fun. That pink dress right there, I'm looking at the screen and it's not a mirror, with the hearts all over it, I was sewing last night. The bodice isn't attached to the waistband yet, and I'm thinking about how I want to do the closure. I know I want to do a zipper, but part of me is considering other closure options. Anyways, fun problems and projects right there. But I'm glad you like it. Dan Does Junk. I always talk to myself while I do anything. Honestly, in my head it makes sense, but then as soon as I say it out loud, I'm like, no, that sounds crazy. And it helps me just check myself. Okay. So my lining, pretty side, wrong side with the wrong edges, is touching the right side of my outside layer, and then on the other side of that of my sandwich is my interlining. You'd think that that would be in the center of my sandwich, but it will be once I stitch all the way around the edge and then I flip it. There's that flipping that's happening, and if I don't, I have to flip it now in my brain before we get to that part. So I sew them in the right order. And I want the smooth side of this closest to my outside layer. So my outside is as pristine as it can be, as clean and crisp. That's the whole point of this ugly layer right here. It's been starched and it's has a lot of stabilizer in it. So it has starched so that it's crunchy. So that's going to be stabilizing my outside fabric, and it needs to do its job. The inside just is there to finish everything off and make it look pretty. And depending on how well I cut everything out, my measurements, etc., these should fit together like perfect puzzle pieces. And if they don't, it probably gives me a reason to pause and think about what's going on and why. I'm not going to pin the neckline because I do want to sew the collar in the neckline before I flip it inside out. Yeah, but I want to press the collar first. I feel like to be really good at sewing, you need to know how to iron. You have to be really good at ironing, because if you iron, the sewing part's easy. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I have been sewing all week. It's been a blur. And I feel like I spend more time at the ironing board than I do at my sewing machine. I feel like I'm not sewing, I'm ironing. Michael Snell, I talk to my cat when I'm doing something. Makes me feel a little less crazy. Honestly, my cats and dogs listen. They know what I'm talking about. They also tell me I'm crazy all the time. And they really don't care too much about what I say unless it's like food, treat, or walk, and then all of a sudden they care, Yeah. Talking to yourself helps if you want to make videos. Yep. Actually, it's kind of nice knowing that I'm not actually talking to myself. Y'all are listening and giving feedback within, goes to space, comes back, and you guys heard what I said, respond. It's crazy. I love living in the future. Just sitting here. If I pin this nicely, it's going to be easier to sew. So I'm actually going to take the effort to pin it nicely. When I pin something, I start at the top and work towards the hemline. I might repeat myself and sound like a broken record, but I'm just going to let you guys know these little things that make notable differences in the amount of problems they negate, if that makes sense. If I start at the top and work my way to the bottom, and then as I get to my bottom, instead of letting it just kind of get off as, things shift, I hold the ends and then let it all feed in and line back up. So I like to start at the top, work my way to the bottom, and if anything's going to be off, it's easier to clean up the hem than it is to try and realign anything to do with the neckline. Whew. I was cutting synthetic materials over here, and now it's like little fibers that make it itchy. You don't realize how dusty sewing is until you do a workshop, and when you're leaving, there's just threads and fabric dust, I suppose, just everywhere. You're like, geez, that's a lot of dust for, what did we do, cut some fabric? Anyways, okay, one edge is lined up, skipping the neckline because I'm gonna go do that in a second. Let me do the other side. Yeah. Okay. Michael Snell, how long do you think you are in the project? How much more to do? That's a good question. So today I don't expect a lot of visual progress, but I feel like I'm going to get a lot of the tedious tasks out of the way for this project. But I'm going to get it all sewn together today. I want to add double welted, not pockets. What's the technical term for little holes to stick your hands through that aren't armholes, just little slats? They're not flaps. They're giant buttonholes, but they're not a buttonhole. Double welted hand. Anyways, my brain is not working. But I'm going to add those after everything's all kind of sewn together. Which sounds like a lot of fun. But after this is stitched together, that's the only thing that I have to do to make this cape wearable. And then after that, it's the fun part of decorating it. Now, I've reached out to Odin, and he is going to help me figure out printing some of the weirder pieces, like little houses and stuff. We haven't really figured out exactly what's getting printed yet, because it's like a bunch of us that all have to communicate. There's a lot of people getting in on this project, but once all the decorations are figured out, then then it's the decorating part. But it's one of those things, because I'm doing it live, this project is getting stretched out, but I'm showing you guys like all the ugly, like all the struggles it is to make weird projects in general. So there's going to be a few more weeks of this project. Maybe not all straight and together, but it all kind of depends on my, like, getting the pieces 3D printed after I put in the pockets. Right now we're waiting on me because I'm not to the point of starting to stick the pieces on, but soon we're going to be waiting on the pieces getting here. Okay. That's my question. Putting this to the side so I can press the collar, and then I will pin the collar inside of this. In all of these layers, I have to figure out which part of the sandwich the collar fits in. Clapper. Not like the clapper where my lights will go off. It's the original clapper. You gotta love it. This thing's the best. For being a patented block of wood, it is the best ironing tool ever. Alright, let me heat up my iron because it is not hot right now. So that pink dress that I was working on, I was finishing up the bodice, and right as I was pressing the back so that I could fold over the top so that I could do it kind of the same. Anyways, I put my iron down on the fabric, and it just melted right through. So I changed the back. It is now a halter instead of a V-back, which I think it ended up being for the better, but at the same time, you know, when you're projecting and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. This one I melted right as I was finishing it. I put a needle through my finger on that skirt, not on purpose. And then, what else? Oh, Tinkerbell, right as I finished it, some of the machine oil for my serger spilt right on the front of it. And it was all finished. And machine oil. You know, all the problems that can go wrong with projects just happened. But good thing that there's like no pressure on these projects right now. So it was just rolling with the punches. But it's just kind of those reminders of no matter how much you do this day in and day out. I was making these things daily. These things do happen. These things do happen. I remember talking with my coworker Yelenia, and we were talking about no matter how like skilled you think you are, you're not above sewing a sleeve into a neck hole on accident. It just happens to the best of us. And I gotta appreciate, you know, the humanity of the crafting. It's the fun part. It's the journey. My blood, sweat, and tears went into these projects. And also my hair. You know how much hair gets sewn into the hemlines of wedding dresses? They try to say, like, if you sew a married woman sews a hair into the hem of a wedding dress, then they'll have a long, prosperous marriage. And if a single woman sews a hair into the wedding dress, then she will get the luck of the bride. But I honestly think it's just, as human beings, we shed, and when you're sewing, it happens, and oh, that's good luck. As somebody who used to make wedding dresses every day. All right, is this iron hot? I feel like it's hot enough to start. Thunk. Don't worry, Felicia. We all heard it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a chaotic good right now. It's a mess. It's chaos in here, but projects are happening. So, sense of accomplishment unlocked. Oh my gosh. So nice. I love the, like, how easy ironing is to make things just all of a sudden just... As a stylist, a lot of my job is steaming things or ironing things and pressing things, because that's the difference on the look, taking something from here to here. Steamer's well worth the investment, just saying. This one, when you're dealing with curves, this is a curved surface right here. You have all of your grid lined up and fighting each other, and it is super easy to stretch your neckline out or your curves out. So when you are pressing them, don't stretch them. When you're sewing them, don't stretch them. When you're pinning them, don't stretch them. When you are looking at them, don't stretch them. You can do a stay stitch in there, but sometimes I need that flexibility, so I don't really have the habit of adding those stay stitches. Plus, it's more bulk and strings and craziness. But respecting the curve goes a long way. Why is this not fitting together? Because you stretched it out. Remember how I told you, like, things should fit together like puzzle pieces, and if they don't, you have to think about it, figure out why. All right, so respecting the curve. I'm going to find the centers of each of these the necklines, and I'm going to mark it with a pin, and I'm going to line that pin up with the shoulder seam. So much string. I want to cut those off, but they really help me pull them. Like when I'm sewing, I can just yank on that string to realign things. So I like to use it when until I cross the seams, and then I will rip it. I will clear off the strings, but they are a useful little tool when you're trying to line delicate little seams up. So, mark the center. Okay. Michael Snell, makes me wonder, as a YouTuber, how many marriage proposals have you received? Actually, none. I really genuinely appreciate that this has not been a toxic community. It's made me feel comfortable and happy to share my my crafting with all of you guys, because you guys have been really nice to me in general. So, but no, I have not received any marriage proposals on the YouTube, which is a-okay with me. So you never know with the internet. It's a weird global audience. Okay, so I'm going to tuck this into my sandwich and see my layers that I have. I have my lining layer, I have my outside layer, and I have my structural layer. I'm going to sandwich this between my lining and my outside layer, and I'm going to line up this pin with these seams. So all these seams and this pin will all line up. Let me Remember how I told you I leave these things so I can hold on to them? When you are trying to line everything up, it's a very helpful thing. All right, I'm going to have about half inch seam allowance. So that would be right there. Okay. I don't want to line it up directly with the edge because there's going to be there's seam allowance in there, and I want it not to get caught in the seam allowance. Like I said, it's a puzzle. You gotta fit together. Okay. I don't think I have enough pins right here. Oh, I still... When I was ironing, I threw a lot of my pins into my ham. It's very nice to crunch in, but having them in it when I want to iron is not always the best. Okay. Michael Snell, what do you call the kind of collar on a shirt that stands straight up? Well, there's the collar. There's the anatomy of a collar. There's the collar stand. There's the roll. There's the, dang nabbit, I forgot all of these things. I feel like I could find it in that book right there. It would take 2 seconds. Let me pin this and then I'll look it up. But, so a mandarin collar is where it's just the collar stand. Yeah, I'll pull out my my pattern drafting book right there, and we will look at the anatomy of a collar, because that stuff fascinates me. All right, do not stretch while you are pinning this curved neckline. Remember, don't stretch it. Don't take this curved line and try and straighten it out for your purposes. Bend with the curve, because it should all be the same curve because they're all based on the same pattern. And if they don't fit, that's probably a sign something's wrong, because I didn't add any easing to this. Again, I know that it's probably better to trim my threads as I go, but I like to work with my threads to help me keep seams. So I'm not the best at trimming all my threads, but as I go and do my pressing, I trim them. There we go. See, now it's all fitting in that curve. So pretty. Where's the other collar? There it is. Okay. Between the right side of the lining and thing at sorry, I keep hitting this microphone. Kind of not used to it being right there right now. Okay. When I'm pinning this together, I'm also making sure that my seam allowance, I pressed it open and flat, and now I want to make sure that I keep it pinned together, open and flat, and that all these layers of bulk are as flat as they possibly can be and lined up right down those seam lines. The attention that I do here while I'm pinning will make it super easy when I put it through the sewing machine. If I don't do it now, I'm going to be fighting it and struggling the whole time. Take your time and pin on these tricky. Sometimes it's way less time to do the effort in the beginning, a little more effort in the beginning than it is to just skip those little steps in the beginning. I'm just going to skip those because they're just little tedious tasks, and then I'll do the thing and it'll go way faster. Nope. If I take the time to just pin and do this nicely, sewing will go faster. Like there are a lot of times that I do skip pinning because it's like, oh, it's fine. It's just a straight line. I can hold this, But experience tells me just pin it. You'll know what you're going to deal with. Feeling some resistance. I'm wondering what I did wrong. So lined up. Okay. Michael Snell, what is the hardest clothing item to sew in your opinion? That's a good question. A lot of people think it's corsetry, not necessarily. I'm out of pins. I need to go get more pins. I think I have some over there. I wouldn't even say it's pants. I wouldn't even say it's a coat. What's the most hardest clothing item to sew in my opinion? Suiting. Only because it's particular. It has to be pressed. If you don't do things right, it's noticeable even on a psychological level. Like if you put the buttons on the wrong sides, people will be like, why does this bother me? And they won't know, but it's the buttons are on the wrong side. Men's clothing is super simply complicated. It's really simple, but it can also be really complicated because, like I said, a little bit more complicated here makes things easier there, etc. So I would say men's suiting. Women's suiting, I'm not as intimidated by. Men's suiting, I feel like, is where it's like, that's a lot of tedious tasks. And the thing is all these things that you do make a big difference. The way you pat it, the way you, I have all these different layers. They don't all line up straight at the edges. The inner layers are technically longer curves than the outer layers of, going over shoulder, so you have to compensate for that. So honestly, I'm going to say men's suiting. Especially the jackets. The pants, but it's the suiting jackets. DJ Stumpy, howdy doody, trying to tune in, but also trying to tube feed my daughter. Hopefully everyone is well. Project's looking awesome, Felicia. Thank you. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go over there and see if I can get some more pins because I ran out of them. Okay. I've been projecting, so it looks like a bit of a war zone in here, but I have pins. I love my magnetic pin bowl. This is meant for nuts and bolts, and I think my grandma got one of these for my dad because he's a mechanic, and so he could keep track of his stuff, his nuts and bolts and things, and I stole it. I love this thing so much, but this isn't my dad's. That one's right over there. This one is one I bought myself from Harbor Freight, and it is just peeling. It's not as nice as my dad's. But I do appreciate a good magnetic pin cushion. I'm not as big of a fan of the pushing pin cushions, especially the wrist ones that push through. If it doesn't have a plastic backing, I've stabbed up my wrist way too much. And I don't like stabbing and unstabbing. I like just going over my area and cleaning it up real quick with the magnet and the bowl. This has been my favorite. So, I have opinions on the right tool for the job makes it significantly easier no matter what the job is. Nut Top, welcome. I'm late to the party. How far along are we on the cool custom cone cape? I like the way you called it. We are doing good. I'm going to get all 3 of the exterior layers sewn together. I am taking my time around this neckline because I don't want to have to rip it out and do it again because the lining fabric's just too delicate to take the ripping out. And I'm just gingerly pinning around this curve. It looks like a big honkin' mess, but that's because I am crafting on a tiny table and live streaming while I do it. But it's fitting together, and I'm just trying to go slowly and not stretch out my fabric. Remember how I told you don't look at it funny so that it doesn't stretch out your curves? Yeah. There's a reason people stay stitch, but I did not stay stitch any of this, and it's fine. Michael Snell, I've seen people use clips rather than pins. Do you feel one better than the other? They're different. They have different places. Clips are great for fabrics that are unforgiving for pins. With a woven fabric, you stab a pin into it. That hole's going to disappear. You can even just, if it's a giant hole, you can wiggle it like this and it will disappear. Stabbing holes into woven fabrics, pins are great because you'll never know they were ever there. That's why I think staples are a valid way to 100% hem your pants. You know, it's just those holes will disappear. You'll be fine. But fabrics like vinyl, leather, anything that has a film versus a weave, that if you puncture it, that hole's going to be permanent. That's why the clips are important. But you also have to be careful with those fabrics because the clips have pressure, and those pressure can leave impressions on your garments. So, like, if there's a texture to them or if they're too strong of a clamp, it can, but it does, it's one of those things that when you're in those weird situations, you do what you can do to make it happen. And sometimes, like a glue stick and some tape or etc., you got to do it, figure it out. You got to figure it out. But clamps are great when you don't want to put holes in things, and you want to hold all your layers together. There is nothing wrong with stabbing through any of the fabric I'm working with. There was a project I was just working on that I was like, ooh, clamps would be really nice for this. The leather top I made. I was thinking that one I could have used clamps on. If I poke a hole into this, this hole's there forever. There's a little bit of a tangle spot from the sewing machine. Oh, no, and this one right here, right there. Just a little tangle spot. And I haven't ripped it out because I don't want to put unnecessary amounts of holes in there. So I wanted to decide if I was going to line it or something before I did it. But this, I was working on this and I was like, dang, I could really use some clamps. I didn't have them. I did it anyway, so I was fine. but this situation, I would never use pins. Clamps aren't bad. They're just different. And okay. Let me find my center back so I make sure I have everything lined up. That seam to that seam to that seam, and that's everybody's center back. Talking to myself again, marking that. Okay. Again, doing all of this pre-labor up front so that when I take it to the sewing machine, oh, it goes quickly. Does that make sense? DJ Stumpy, I finally finished my Rimmer Red Dwarf costume. I followed McCall's civil pattern, which was, as you know, modified, similar. Imperial officer feels a little incomplete where I French chain hemmed. French chain hem. What's a French chain hem? I'll have to look that up. Because I know finished edges make a big difference in the way a project feels. I haven't finished the edges of this pink dress on the outside, like the flowy layer. I kind of want to go to my mom's and use her serger on the rolled hem setting because I know it'll take me 5 minutes. It'll take me a few hours to get mine set up and figured out and all blah, 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 blah. But going over to my mom's house, it'll be real quick. Smoosh it and you smoosh it, but you don't want to smoosh it. You want it just to lay right. Anyways, so I have to hem that. But this pink one, even though it's not attached to the bodice yet, I hemmed it first, trying this new way to hem. And I really, really like the way that hem turned out. Ah! Why? Stop. What am I stuck on? Remember how I told you I like to hold these little strings so that I can just maneuver a little easier? Very glad that I have them, but jeez. Smush it in there. Okay. Trying to talk and do this at the same time. Ta-da! So pretty. When the stars align, when the seams align. Okay. I know that was a lot to figure out, just pinning these all nicely, but now they are all the layers correct. I also have to pin the hem and then we can sew it and switch it. I stabbed this to me. Okay. Sharp things are sharp, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Okay. And again, I don't want to pull things. I want them to lay, and then I pin them when they're laying perfectly. Dan does junk. You don't like your serger much, eh? not that I don't like it. It's that I have 2 hand-me-down sergers that didn't come with manuals that, although I can figure out, I've used so many different sewing machines, vintage ones, modern ones, etc. Like, I can figure them out, but I have to sit there and figure them out. And I just haven't wanted to do that mentally. And it's easier because my mom has hers already just set up and ready to go. And so, figure it out or just use Mom's. I'm kind of leaning towards just use Mom's because I don't want to set my serger up for a rolled hem that I am only going to use on this project, and then I need to set it back to just a regular seam. All right. You know what? I really ought to do this on a flat surface, and I'm not because I do this to myself, and it's okay. I really like taking all the strings from all the seams, and if I pull them, all the seams are in a straight line, and I know that my seams are lined up. And then I stab straight through the middle. Okay, so the lining at the bottom of the jacket is just French chained at the seam hems of the jacket. The rest is closed off, so it feels incomplete because I can see raw hem of the main jacket. Okay, I get that. There's ways to fix that. There's ways to go around it, and then there's ways to just move on mentally and say, oh, it's finished enough. Okay, I'm really trying not to force everything into a straight line at the hem because I want it to be where it's supposed to lay. But at the same time, I am not on a flat, even surface. I'm a little bit chaotic at the moment, being on such a big, having all this stuff on my table. What is all the stuff? My sewing machine, my laptop, another tiny sewing machine. Yeah. Michael Schnell literally putting blood, sweat, and tears into this project. Like I said, blood, sweat, tears, my hair. Yeah. Don't sew because it's cheaper. Oh, so pretty. Okay. Yeah. So you smush it and you smush it and you smush it. Don't smush it too much because you don't want to stretch it out, but yeah. Okay. Clear off some of the glue guns and glue sticks over there. Michael Snell, do bed sheets make good practice material? Hell yeah, they do. They're really big too. They're nice, big, giant pieces. It's fairly cheap at the thrift store. They have cool patterns and prints. Now, the thing about getting fabric from other sources is that it's usually meant for other sources, like upholstery fabric. It's meant for couches. It's meant for the heavy wear and tear of your dog jumping up and down on your couch, and kids and all sorts of other things, and often have treatments and coatings and all this other crap that you don't necessarily want to wear on your skin. So, like, you should recognize that fashion fabric's meant for the body and is like children's sleepwear. It needs to be a certain non-flammability. So, like, a lot of fabric at the Joann's will say, like, not suitable for children's sleepwear because of regulations like that, etc. But cotton's cotton. Cotton breathes. Cotton's nice. Cotton bed sheets are amazing to work with. And then you can get into higher thread counts and such. So yes, bed sheets, bedding, curtains you gotta be careful with because they have those weird linings sometimes, like blackout curtains, but it's also great because those make really sturdy corseted tops and stuff for jackets. So I am 100% a recycle kind of person, like reduce, reuse, and recycle. I have made bed sheet dresses before. Like, as a kid, one of my favorite things to get into because it's something I could afford. Low barrier to entry. Painter's tarp. This guy right here. Yes, you can use a bed sheet. You'll be fine. Have fun. It's really hard getting into your fabric stash and wasting your fabric on a terrible project. You don't really want to go all this work and you destroyed the fabric and you just want to cry. So it's a lot easier to figure out your pattern on something that you don't care about. Something that's not going to hurt your feelings if you wasted it. Because then you're more likely to do it, to use it, etc. So, yes, play. Dan does junk. I'm sure there's online sources for the sergers you have. Yes, there are. Again, it's just the whole I have to mentally sit down, figure it out, and I have access to not having to mentally sit it down and figure it out. And that is what the appealing part is. Slightly off, that means I smooshed things to my convenience and not what they were supposed to be. Alright. Pin off this last section and then we'll go around and start sewing it. I hope this all lays down flat when I need it to. The wool's really nice to work with. The cotton's really nice to work with. But this synthetic acetate lining is a pain in the rear. There are fabrics that are more suitable to beginners than others. Cotton, basic weave, cotton bed sheet, super simple, go for it. Satin bedsheet. Oh my gosh, you're going to fight it. It's going to be slippery. You're going to hate your life. But it might turn out really pretty. So sometimes it's not you, it's the fabric. And every fabric has a learning curve and its own personality of how it likes to go through your sewing machine, which needles it likes, which threads it likes, how it likes to be treated, you know. So not top. What's the deadline for this project? I don't have a hard deadline for this project, but there is an event that I think I want to have it ready for. So, and that's at the end of June. Is that cryptic enough? Let me throw needles at myself. I just want to brag, I guess. So this is how big a serger cone of thread is. You're not really supposed to use serger cone as regular thread on a sewing machine, because this is like 2-ply, 1-ply, 2-ply, where sewing machine is at least 3-ply. And if you know, like toilet paper, the more plies, the thicker the better. So sewing machine thread is one thread, so you need it to be thicker, where serger thread, you have multiple threads, so they get to be a little bit thinner. So technically you shouldn't really be using serger thread on your sewing machine, but who's gonna stop me? Anyways, I cleared a whole cone. That's a lot of frickin' sewing, I'm just going to say. This is how big a cone is, and I have an empty cone. I'm very proud of that. It wasn't as big as this cone. This is a much bigger cone. But still a friggin' lot of thread to go through. Okay. I'm gonna start here at this seam and then go around. Board is to the side, but not too far away, because I'm gonna need it in a second. All right. Oh, good. It's just a pop-up. I was like, oh no, is my battery dying? It's not. Does the thread color need to match the fabric, or can you get away with just black/white? Very good question. Yes. I'm changing this thread to be green to match my outside fabric, because it won't be noticeable or seen. If I use black or white and you stretch the seams, you can see it. But I used white on that. I'm not going to use pink. I used white on that. 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 White's going to be fine. Black's going to be fine. They work great. Now, if you're going to top stitch, unless you want it to be a decorative detail, you might want to try and match as close to the colors as you can. But yeah, we used off-white, or what was it? Anyways, it wasn't white. Like with the wedding dresses we did, if we used white, you could see the thread and it looked bad. So we had to use not ivory, but an off-white, and it blended with most of the shades of white and ivory. But the ultra pure whites, those needed to have ultra pure white thread, because you could see, and it looks funny, and it looks yellow, and it's like 50 shades of white. Seriously, it makes a big difference. But that's also bridal gowns. Now we're sewing costumes, our own collections, clothing, etc. White thread's gonna be fine. You can't see it. You can't see my top stitching. You can't see. You could be fine. But here's the trick. If you are trying to figure out what thread to go with, go for the darker color. Like if you have a green and there's a shade lighter or a shade darker, go for the shade darker. It's going to disappear. The lighter shade will pop off. So when you're looking at thread colors and you're trying to match and you're trying to be a good job at it, go for darker. It makes a big difference. All right. I'm doing a straight stitch, but I'm doing a longer straight stitch because it's thick. There's some layers that has to go up and over, so it's going to naturally have like if I kept it at the regular stitch length instead of having it regular stitch length, it's going to be tiny stitches because it's such thick fabric, and I don't want that tight of stitches. I don't want to rip it out. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to press it. I don't want to any of that. So I'm just extending it to quote unquote a basting stitch, but because it's so thick, I'll be fine. Oh, I didn't thread the machine. It's okay. Talking and crafting at the same time, it's not the end of the world. Better. One of the reasons that I put my pin stabbing into my fabric like this, less likely to hit a needle when I'm sewing, and it's not as crucial if I accidentally sew over a needle. But don't sew over your pins. Your sewing machine will appreciate if you don't. Instead of trying to like navigate around a corner, I cross my corners. So I drive all the way to the end, cut my thread, turn, and do the whole other straight seam. That way I have 2 lines of thread protecting my corner from getting destroyed when I turn it inside out. I can cut really close to those thread lines and it'll keep it from fraying. I have this paper here that I keep thinking is going to fall off, but now it's down there and it won't fall. Okay. you smush it and you smush it. There's the needle. Sharp things are sharp. Oh, I'm sorry I keep honking y'all. This thing doesn't seem to fit very well. That's okay. Stay. All right. Took all that time to pin this neckline so that it will go smoothly. See if it actually does. Just go slow. Telling myself that, even though I never do. Fight with the sewing machine. Yeah, and I'll kick it, sir. What? Why does this feel bumpy? That doesn't feel right. Been smooth. What is going on with this one spot? I foresee a problem and I don't want to deal with it. Let me do it now and smush it. Worst case scenario, I'd rip that little part out and we fix just right there, but I would prefer it if we didn't have to. Very confident in what I just did. It's okay, we'll find out. All of this fabric's forgiving except for that dumb lining layer, which is really pretty. Why? What is going on? Just take a deep breath. This is only going to get worse before it gets better. Michael Snell, good question. Are the armholes on the piece or is it solid all the way around? Currently, it is solid all the way around. I am going to add double welted pockets, but not pockets. They're going to be little armholes. But I don't know what the technical term for those are, and it doesn't matter because unless I'm trying to Google it, I can Google the pockets and know and figure out the instructions on how to do it. Knock top, does the neckline get a standard stitch? Starting out, yes. It does. It's going to have a couple stitches in there by the time I'm done, but it does. I ran into a little bump. Honestly, I think it's because I'm working on a cramped surface and I didn't lay everything out flat. I'm going to blame it on that for right now, but honestly, I feel like the best thing to do right now is I kind of want to just keep making it worse. I want to just kind of power through the seam, flip it inside out, and then see what actually went wrong. Because right now I'm blind. It's 4 layers inside out, all fitting together. Which one of you is off? I don't know. Once I get it all together and I flip it, then I'll be like, oh, you're the layer that's off. I know how to fix this. But until I get it all flipped in my brain, I have no idea which one's the one I'm struggling with. It's I think the green outer layer that got a little, everything else lines up. This little spot right here, I might be able to just rip it out and smoosh it, but I'm just gonna power through it. And I am at least using a long stitch length, so it won't be the worst to rip out. Don't worry, I'm only live showing you guys that I am human, I guess. Okay, I got past the part that was the bump that I know I'm gonna have to fix, but at least I'll know what to do and I can rip it out. Yeah, the acetate lining's it's a pain in the butt, but get through it. Even the silk collar's not as delicate as that acetate lining. Fun fact, acetate lining dissolves in acetone, which is nail polish remover. The more you know, right? I'm missing one layer. There it is. There we go. Why aren't you moving? That's weird. There we go. Okay. I'm going to do the big long seam before I look and see what my mistake was. I might regret this, but whatever. I'm doing it. Need to breathe. Hey, look, it's a little Bruno out of pipe cleaner. How is it? Oh, it pooped. Michael Snell, is this the strangest thing you've ever made? Not even by a long shot. Not by a long shot. Trying to think of what the weirdest thing I've ever made was. But I have a very weird job. Used to be the costumer for Smosh. I made a lot of weird costumes for them. Made Ian the peanut butter baby once, and that one was strange and weird, and I'm very proud of Paula for thinking to use a wig to put peanut butter on his head so that it wasn't like scrubbing his poor hair with covered in peanut butter. It was peel off the wig covered in peanut butter. But not by a long shot. My LinkedIn profile picture is me wearing a dress made out of panty liners, or so I've made some weird things. Made a measuring tape dress made out of just measuring tapes. Made a jacket made out of patterns, sewing patterns. I made one of those 1500s Marie Antoinette style ball gowns out of plastic bags. That thing turned out amazing. So, no, this is not the weirdest thing. And honestly, I'm getting deja vu for a set I built where I had to have the actress, she stuck her head through the center of the set, and it was a train set going around her head, and then she was supposed to be in the train that was going around her head, so we also built the train set that she was then in. So, fun problems, weird problems, and no, this is not the strangest thing I've worked on yet. Yeah. Husk, welcome. I don't know why, but sewing machines seemed so dangerous. I don't mind using a chainsaw, but when it comes to sewing machines, I just can't handle it. Are you afraid of needles? Because you might have a healthy fear of being stabbed. And I can't say it doesn't happen, because it does happen. It doesn't happen often, and you can be really good about it, but seriously, late night sewing, voluminous project. But I don't think anybody's like died from a sewing machine, and like compared to chainsaws, like accidents. I don't know the statistics on these things, I just assume. But when I had my booth at the May the 4th event, I had a little sewing machine, not this one, but a little one like this one, that wasn't painted and all sparkly, that I was letting kids use when they come to the booth, and I would, oh, here it is. So, if you guys just got a sewing machine and want to know what to do with it without actually having to get into a project, I drew lines and then tried all the different stitches going down the line. So it's like driving along the line, how long, because a lot of people are like, I can't sew a straight line to save my life. I'm like, well, then practice sewing a straight line. And then, so the kids would sit down at the sewing machine, and I would draw a straight line for them to follow and a tricky line for them to follow. And can you guys see it? There's little holes poked through it from the sewing machine, maybe from the back. Perforated holes. Because I didn't have any thread in the sewing machine. I just had the stabby holes, so that they tried to stab all the holes on the line, and it's the thickness of the marker, so it gives you some wiggle room, more than you'd expect. and it was like a tangible video game. It's kind of tricky and you have to figure it out, and it's fun to play with, and it's no pressure of trying to complete a project. It's just like driving on a sewing machine. How fast can you go? Not as fast as you think when you're following those tricky lines. So yeah, if you want to play, I suggest drawing some lines on a piece of paper. I even did fun shapes. See, this one I had thread so you can see it, but sewing project without being an actual project, you'd just play. If you want to play on a sewing machine and you don't want the pressure of a project, give yourself some racetracks to follow. I suggest keeping it small. Like this design is a tricky design. Go ahead and try a swirl. Believe it or not, these corners are easier than if it is a swirl, like without the sharp edges, because a straight line, get it to the corner, pivot on the corner. And when you can kind of play with the stitch length to hold your paper back a little bit, but let the needle go down so it lands in the right spot before you pivot. Doing swirly lines out of these shapes, this one right here is the trickiest. We have the swirls. They're tricky. I honestly think this is trickier than this, but this is still tricky in its own way. But out of the three, I think this one's the trickiest. So different shapes and ideas. I would keep it to a quarter paper size so it fits in your sewing machine because you only have so much space on the side of your sewing machine to play. But you can also do it out of fabric. It doesn't have to be paper. And if it's paper, you can just stab holes. You don't need to use thread. It's more about just having fun and playing. Maybe I just have a sewing machine phobia. Honestly, stabbing your fingers with the needle that goes up and down, you don't really want to put your fingers by it. It makes a lot of sense. But if you keep your hands outside of the box, there's a little thing. You should be a-okay. These things are for children. And I sewed a whole denim quilt with this sewing machine. So, this is the $40 cheap one off of Amazon. If you're scared, this might be a fun one to go because it's not so intimidating, especially when they're pink. I think that one's originally pink. Michael's no one has ever tried juggling sewing machines. I think we did a gag at Smosh where Anthony was throwing things, or Ian was throwing things at Anthony. I forgot, but we needed to make, Odin made a sewing machine and an iron that were foam versions of the heavy versions so that we could throw them at them in a pool. And I think they were supposed to get electric. I don't remember. We did so many gags. What was the strangest? I have no idea, but we needed a foam iron and a foam sewing machine to throw at Ian and Anthony. I love these problems. I miss those problems. I still get weird problems like this. Yeah, I think Odin even still has the iron. I look at it on a shelf up high in his studio, in his shop. But, yeah. Memory unlocked there. I need to do that kind of sewing practice. Yeah, totally. Racetracks are the best. They're fun. I even when I was doing it, having to take my time. I'm a speed racer when it comes to sewing. I do not like driving slow. Even I have to slow down and try and do it. And plus, it's also fun to if you get a scrap piece of fabric and you do your racetracks with all the fun stitches, you can have a record of all the different stitches you have on your sewing machine and what they look like on fabric, which will help when you're I want to play with stitches. Which one should I use? You'll kind of have a reference. Maybe I might try one day. I've seen one of those handheld sewing machines. Are those any good? No. Don't bother with those hand ones unless you're closing a bag of feed or a dog food bag. No. Do not waste your time, money, energy on one of those handheld sewing machines. Just use a needle and thread. Needle and thread, believe it or not, is not that bad of an option if you don't have a sewing machine. It goes fairly quick. You can do everything. It's the most versatile tool. People have been using it before they even had sewing machines. So if you don't want to use the sewing machine, needle and thread are valid ways to adhere items. And like I said, stapling hems, using a stapler on a hemline, I'm not opposed to. It's not going to destroy your fabric necessarily unless it's leather. Okay. I went past the point that I was going to stop, so this is my turning spot. Okay. Do I still have pins in here? Let me check for pins. Check for pins. Yes, there's still pins. Check for pins. I'm going to turn it inside out. Well, right side out. Then I'm going to turn it back inside out, trim my edges, and then turn it back inside out. But I might end up going back. We'll see, because I know I screwed up right here somewhere. And I have to see what I did. I have to. Okay, that's that. Danda's junk. I'd be honored if Odette decided to throw me off the roof. LOL. Careful. You did that to Joe, and Joe never came back. No. Okay. See how this corner has so much bulk in it? There's the 2 layers of the wool and the cotton in there, and it is just dense. I'm going to have to trim that, so I'm turning it right now, but I know that I'm going to have to go back in and turn this corner so it's prettier. Okay. Michael Snell, how do you feel about gloves? I've heard mixed reactions on sewing gloves. Some say it's difficult, others say it isn't too bad. Okay, working with wedding dresses, white fabric, delicate fabrics, we had gloves for us to use as we felt necessary to use them. Generally, I like using my hands, and also I was making dresses during COVID, so we were constantly washing our hands. Like, it helped because your hands are really sweaty. You don't realize how sweaty your hands are until you're having to hand sew, and you're just like, why is this pretty white fabric like dirty looking? It's the oils, it's the dirt from your hands. And even though you just washed your hands before you started, but you're sitting there and you realize how funky human bodies can be just in general. So white gloves, sewing delicate fine fabrics make a lot of sense, especially when you're doing like the soft English tulle and this like the silk organza that's so freaking like there are places for it, but using my hands is, I'm used to it, and also keeping my hands clean while I'm working. But then I do appreciate having those as a tool. The right tool for the job makes it significantly easier, not having to do it twice because you've screwed it up because your hand oils, you know. So, good question. All right, let me see, what did I screw up? Okay. Let me throw this on the dress form. My dress form's a little tall today because I was hemming. Oh, I see. That's where it is. Okay. pin. I'm not super making these corners or edges pointy yet because I'm going to turn it back inside out in a moment. But it's wearable. Indubitably. Feels so fancy. Without the cone in it, it's just a nice cape. I have too much hair. Let me get my hair out of the way. Do I have anything? No hair ties. When I'm sewing, I usually throw my hair up because I can't stand it being in my face when I'm leaning forward. So all my hair ties or pens or pencils that would be perfect for stabbing my hair up have been moved from this area because I will use it and then walk away. Oh. Yeah. Oh well. Okay. Take a drink. Take a deep breath. I know what I did with the back and I have to fix that, but it's fixable. And then I have to trim my edges. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's look at this garment unfinished and talk shit about it. See, these edges, they're all poofy. They're not pressed. And so it looks not good because it's all funky and wide shaped and funny. Okay? That just means it needs to be ironed. If I iron, like I finger press it first to really get that seam out. But then I also have this rounded corner that's really bulky and thick. So I have to trim out the excess from this corner. This bottom edge is actually really pretty. I do appreciate it. This collar, there's a lot fighting me on this because we have all these curves and I need to trim my curves so that it lays flat. Let me go on this side so you guys can see what I'm talking about. See how it's pulling this towards the front? Just hanging here. It's not really necessarily laying the flattest. It's because there's a curve on the seam allowance that's fighting you. So you have to trim out that and cut little wedges so that it fits together and has space to spread and curve around. And what did I screw up on the back? See this? There's a little pleat right here. This needs to be right in between these. And I just need to smoosh it. Yeah, it's just not laying flat. So I need to rip out from here to here. So I'm going to mark that with a pin. And I'm going to stab it so that I can see it on the other side when I flip it back inside out. And then I have to trim off these corners right where the collar's coming out so that they can be sharp corners. Yeah. See this edge? It's just really, it just needs to be pressed. Now I'm going to do understitching. What's understitching? It's going to be a line of stitching right on the inside of the collar after I trim off the seam allowance so that it lays flatter, so that everything pulls and stays towards the inside. And it'll make sure everything lays a lot flatter and nicer. But I have to fix this spot right here, which I marked with pins so I can flip it inside out. Trim this up, so I'm going to rip out just this section that I knew I was fighting with, reline everything up, sew it back up, and trim everything else down. So it's a little wonky, But why is it wonky? It's because the seam allowance isn't trimmed here yet, so it's pulling and fighting me. How we fix this problem is we have to cut the seam allowance little wedges out of it so that it can spread and curve on this line as opposed to this line right here, which is the seam allowance line, because this is a narrower curve. It's the inside of the circle. This is the outside of the circle. Does that make sense? So trimming that out so it lays flatter, pressing it, but then also doing a row of understitching is just going to keep everything on this edge super clean and pretty, and then it'll be a pretty finished edge. Oh, thank you. It still looks amazing. I appreciate that. But I want to tell you guys what I'm doing and why. Yeah, it's done, but it's not done. Why is it not done? Because this is fighting me, and I'm not going to fight this the entire time, and I know what to do about it. So, yes. You need to know what the rules are so you know why you're breaking them and when to break them and when to not. Michael Snell, I meant making gloves, not using sewing gloves. I've done it. It's not. Those are an item that if it's easy enough to buy, it's cheaper and easier just to buy the ones that you want/need for gloves. They're not that hard, they're not that crazy, and they come in every dang color, and I like the stretch satin ones. They're my favorite. But I was thinking about adding gloves to that outfit just to make it a crazy... But then I was like, no, that's just too much. That's just too much. But this outfit's going to be styled with gloves, but I'm not making them from scratch. I honestly think a men's suit is more difficult than a pair of gloves. All right, flipping this back inside out. See, this is the seam allowance right here. And see, this is where the edge is that we need to trim up. But right here to here, let me reach in there. I have my pin sticking up through here, marking where I need to rip it out. Cheers. Not top. When you press those edges, do you put something under your iron so it doesn't make it shiny? A pressing cloth. I usually just use a scrap of, this is just the drop cloth that is floating everywhere. So it's just a basic piece of cotton. I might use this on the acetate layer because that's the most temperature sensitive. The wool can take the heat. This ham is made out of wool. Wool is amazing for ironing. So I'm not worried about burning the wool. I'm not worried about burning the cotton. Those both are high temperature. Cottons can take more heat than wool can, and wool can take they used to make firefighter outfits out of it because it's self-extinguishing and it can take the heat. But this acetate synthetic layer right here, that can't take the heat. So if I'm going to do pressing on that one, I'm using more steam, and I'm trying to do it from the wool side if I can, and lower heat on that, especially after the other day I burnt Pinky over here and wanted to cry. So I have learned my lesson to test on a sample before I just center, you know. That made me cry. Granted, it turned out to be a better design in the end, so happy little accidents. Thank you, Bob Ross. But at the same time, I'm definitely a little bit shy when it comes to throwing my iron on these projects today. All right. I'm just ripping out this little section right here. It's better be patient and not destroy my oh, there it goes. Acetate to just fight it. Michael Schnell, can you iron something like leather? No. If you wet leather, it's going to make it more pliable, and then when it dries out, it'll hold the shape that it dried in, so you can shape leather using water and moisture, but I don't like to because it's a little, I don't want water spots and can be scary. Use a rubber mallet. You don't iron it, you smash it with a hammer. And it works really well. So, where is it? I feel like I showed you guys a second ago. That leather bustier I made. Oh, here it is. You can't see my seams because I covered them. But I didn't press these seams. I hammered them. So, they're not super poofy. I feel like I probably could have hammered them more. I just didn't want to leave hammer spots because I wasn't using a rubber mallet. I was using a regular hammer. But yeah, leather you don't iron, you hammer it. You smoosh it forcefully with a rubberized mallet. Okay. All right, this section is ripped out. Let me take out these pins and place them on the top so I'm not stabbing myself. Okay. Now for the fun part. Center back, center back. Perfect. Okay, I like that. I am happy with that. I really just needed to see what was going on. Now let me stitch it before I breathe and it moves. So, back stitch. Thought I broke a needle. I just didn't. I just scared myself. Okay. Let's start with corners, and then we'll go back to the neckline because I want to forget about the neckline for just a moment. All right, remember I crossed the corners, so I stitched all the way up and all the way across. That way I can trim out all this excess bulk and I have these stitching lines just as backup so nothing comes unraveled. I love these scissors, these are the best. They're super sharp and can go through all these layers. Having dull scissors while you're sewing is the worst. I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. Just had it all folded the other way and I'm folding it back out this way. So you can cut diagonally across one of these corners, especially if you didn't do the stitching the way I did. But I feel like when I cut out the edge, I can fold and I can fold and I will get a much pointier corner that way. I know you can like sew a thread into your corners to help pull them really tight, but right now I'm just really trying to debulk my corners. is a good question, Michael Snell. Do you sharpen your scissors or buy new ones? How long do they last? Okay, so when I was making wedding dresses daily, we would send out our scissors to get sharpened. We had Gutermann's, and for the longest time, if you had Gutermann scissors, they had like a lifetime guarantee of you can get them, send them in, and they would sharpen them for you for free and send them back. I don't think it's free anymore, but we would send our scissors in to go get sharpened, and then we would get them back, and they would come back, and they'd last. We did that about every 6 months or so. Like, we would just start to notice our scissors are getting dull, or like, and we'd do them in like these half or that half, so we'd all have our favorite scissors. And I don't like, you know. But then when I was working at the upholstery shop, we bought a scissor sharpener, and oh my goodness, I was just like amazed at how dull everybody's scissors were. So I'm like, how do you function in life with these dull of scissors? It really, like, having a like machine sharpener is super easy. Personally, my own scissors, I've sharpened them when I was at work at the with the upholstery with that sharpener, so mine have all been freshly sharpened. But they don't really dull too fast because I only use them on fabric, so I haven't really had to my fabric scissors stay nice. But I also do go buy in bulk dollar store scissors, the big 8-inch scissors or the 7. Sometimes they're only 5, but depends on what the dollar store has. If they have the good, fun printed ones, a fresh, brand new open scissors is going to be amazing to cut out fabric versus a pair that's cut a bunch of paper. So sometimes if you just really need a good pair of scissors for your fabric and you don't have fabric scissors, a fresh pair of dollar store scissors is a valid excuse. And they do sharpen up nicely if you do have a scissor sharpener. So both. I will use cheap scissors, but I do appreciate a good scissor sharpener. It's worth it. Folding these corners. You smush it and you smoosh it. Just kind of going through and doing the corners before I flip it. Not top. What do you think your scissor collection number is? When I need them, none. I can't find any scissors when I need them. But I know for a fact that I bought 25 pairs from the dollar store when the dollar store was still $1 before it went up to $1.25, because I wanted to use, they were like the cool printed pattern ones, and I wanted to use them for a backdrop. I was going to hang them in the background, but I really liked the scissors, and I didn't end up using them for the project that I did that for. So I know I have 25 dollar store scissors, but then I gave about 10 of them away, and I know I still have 10 in my kits. And then that's just counting those ones from that one purchase. But then I also have my sewing scissors thing. About 10 good good scissors and specialty scissors. But I don't have any pinking shears right now. So I know I have at least 25 pairs of scissors, at least. Do I know where all of them are? Heck no, I don't. Like, I feel like there's this one drawer in the kitchen that I keep throwing scissors in, but every time I go to get scissors out of that drawer, they're never there. But okay. Corners much better. Oh, I didn't trim that. Let me do the neckline. Okay, so my neckline. Just trim this. I'm cutting to my stitching line, but not through my stitching line. Some people like to stagger, like cut the top layer and then the middle layer and the bottom layer with the lines all staggered so that they don't line up, so that it's less noticeable when you press it. But that's a lot of work, and this is so bulky and big that I don't think it's going to make a big difference. And I'm going to do the understitching, so that's going to help anyways. So I think we'll be fine. Michael Schnell, is there a brand you recommend for scissors or sewing machines for that matter? Yes. I really like Gutermann. Oh no, Ginger. Sorry, not Gutermann. Ginger. Gutermann, what's that brand? That's the thread I like. I'm like, why is it like, yes, Gutermann. Gutermann's the thread. Ginger is the scissors that I really like. These are Ginger not pinking shears, applique scissors. I love those. These Gingers, these have, they remind me of flintlock because they have this little thing. They're spring loaded, so they like bounce open. And you'd think that'd be easier on your scissors, on your hands, but it changes the muscle tiredness to an abducting versus adducting. Anyways, so I love these. And then these are my scissors that I've had for, since I started in college. I know the sound of these scissors. Like when people have their scissors in a pile, I know exactly which ones are mine by the, and plus my thing has a little spot right here, so these are my babies. These ones, like, even though they may not be these ones technically are newer and nicer, these ones have been on my fashion journey with me from the beginning and are my absolute favorite. Like, I know the sound of the clip that they make. And they're still as sharp as ever, and they are the best. So, like, Ginger, I believe they have, like lifetime warranties or whatever, but those are the scissors that I highly recommend. Like I said, I'm not above $1 store pair of scissors. But if you want to invest in a pair, I would get those. This is an off-brand. This is not the Ginger brand bird scissors, but I like those. These scissors are Singer. They're not those ones, but these ones I'm not afraid to screw up. These are meant to be pack mules, I guess, scissors. I love them. I use them. They were a Christmas present. Great scissors, but if I recommend scissors for, like, you want a good pair, Ginger, any Ginger. You can get them wholesale off a Waywalk. Worth it. They're actually not that bad on Amazon price-wise, but I have access to wholesale, and it's worth it for scissors. And sewing machines. Honestly, the brand doesn't bother me on sewing machines. It's more that I've upgraded from dial sewing machines to computerized sewing machines. So if you're going to like invest in a sewing machine, spend that little bit extra to get a computerized one over a tune dial one, because turning it off and on again and going back into one, my favorite. It's the best. It's the best. You don't have to tune your settings. You can just turn it off and it's going to do Turn it on again, it's going to go back to straight stitch. You want a zigzag, it's 4. You need it wider, ++. You know what I mean? Like, there are features that I recommend for a sewing machine over particular models or types. I know people swear by Berninas, and I have not had very good experiences with them, so, but I've been hearing good things about them lately. Makes me want to revisit. I really like this version of this Brothers sewing machine, but they've have a newer model out, and I'm not sure if I like that one as much as I like this one. I really did like their Project Runway sewing machine, and Brother has been a great brand in general. But I've also had Kenmore Singers, Genomes, and I've liked them too. So, vintage sewing machines don't like modern fabrics, so be careful. Like, I love a good vintage sewing machine. Oh, they're so gorgeous, and they're pretty, and they're power horses, and they can just really crank, but they do not like modern fabrics, like especially knits, synthetics, crazy, fun cosplay fabrics. Vintage sewing machines do not like them, and it's not necessarily you. It could just be your sewing machine hates your fabric. So a modern computerized basic model sewing machine, you will be the happiest in your sewing experience. And get a Teflon foot. And I don't know how to explain it, but this little blue thing right here, it's a thread conditioner. Thread Heaven or Thread Magic, it's a thread conditioner that you buy for hand stitching. They have a little stick-on thing that you put on your sewing machine. All the issues with sewing machines can be fixed with Teflon foot, the right needle, and thread conditioner. Like, a lot of the troubleshooting, those 3 things make a big difference on my sewing machine. The thread conditioner keeps my sewing machine from getting gunked up. Cheap threads go through my sewing machine a lot easier without breaking. It makes my, like, I'm sewing with serger thread and I'm not struggling with it. Thread conditioner is amazing. It's a secret little weapon that you don't know about, but like, since I've done it, I've noticed that it's made a world of difference. It's a little thing. I highly recommend that nobody would notice or even know. I like that little piece. And a Teflon foot, so that, because Teflon goes over the crazy tricky fabrics that you're fighting. You don't want to fight the sewing machine? Use Teflon. People use walking foots. Those just seem so bulky to me, and I have one. I literally just saw it a moment ago. I was like, oh, look, there's a walking foot. Huh. I hid it from me. I have one, never used it, but a Teflon foot. Upholstery fabrics, synthetic fabrics. People use like tissue paper for that issue, newspaper, so on, interfacing, but a Teflon foot helps with that. And then having the right needle. If something's going wrong with your sewing machine, turn it off and on again. If that doesn't fix it, change your needle. So, anyways. All right, I think this is ready to turn. Right side out. Oh, that corner's so much prettier now. Look at it, it's so less bulky. And I don't want to fully turn because I got to do my understitching. Ooh, I have dark green on and my lining's a light green. And normally nowhere else would it matter, but it's going to cross right on that back corner. Hold on. It says reconnection successful, so say hi when you can hear me. Okay. don't think I'm going to do the understitching with the color thread I have in my sewing machine right now. It's just not going to look pretty and it'll bother me, and I'd rather not have it. I'm here, thank you. Welcome back. You guys missed me. I wasn't gone too long, was I? Not top. What are pinking shears even used for? As a kid, I've only used them to cut patterns in paper. Very good question. Pinking shears are a way to finish your seams. Remember how I keep saying that you got to finish your edges, finish your edges, finish your edges? Why do we have to finish our edges? Like, can't we just like cut the edge and just leave it? If you do that, it will unravel and you can just pull the threads off. Now, it's really easy to pull the threads off and they're in a straight line. Now, pinking shears cut little biases, cut little zigzags all the way down your edge of your fabric so that you don't have a straight line that's just peeling all the threads off. It keeps the fabric from unwinding. It's especially good with lightweight fabrics that are a tighter weave. You cut those edges, they're not going to shred on you, and then you're going to have a thin, lightweight edge finish that's not going to get bulky when you put it in your seams or seam allowance. So if you don't have a serger, you just cut your edges of your seams with the pinking shears. I haven't really been stressed out about finishing my seams on this because the way I'm finishing these seams is by adding the lining. A lining is a seam finish, if that makes sense. So pinking shears are a seam finish for lightweight woven fabrics. They're a very useful tool. I do not have a pair of them, but also it makes things look homemade to me, which used to be a bad thing, but now is a good thing in my opinion. So it's a look. I have a compass and a mechanical drafting pencil from high school that I still use. Hey, when the right tool, right? Okay. All right. Just make sure these corners are sharp, and then I think it's time to press it and want to get this corner as sharp as I can. Steam helps. Whoops. Get this side. There we go. I don't recommend using the tips of your scissors like I'm doing because it does stab through. I recommend using a bone folder. Do I know where my bone folder is at the moment? No. Sounds very metal though. The bone folder. No, it's just a stick that's made out of synthetic bone. So. Not the worst, not the craziest. Let me try with the comb. Can I even put it on myself yet? I don't have my arm flap holes yet. That's next week. Found a pin. Ow! another pin. Yeah, I need to put the armholes in. But at least I know where I want them. And this does feel like the right spot. They need to go right here. And then I have to line it up on this front piece. This needs to get pressed. You can see it's not laying flat. Look at all those pins. That's what's stabbing. Okay. It's utter chaos, but it's a good thing. Is the zipper going in the front or the back? The opening is going in the front. There is no zipper. It's going to be, the thing goes over the head, and then the cape goes over the top of that. So there's not going to be a zipper. I think I may do a string tie at the center front, like a little bow, so that it's a little dainty and delicate, and I might do it out of the white silk. But I also might make it disappear with the green and do a little green. I haven't fully decided yet, but I have been making a lot of spaghetti straps lately. I used to avoid them because they were stupid and a pain in the butt to turn inside out. But my mom gave me these tools and I finally pulled them out, and they are the best for making the little strings. And so now I'm like, oh, I could just do a matching tie in any color I want. So I can do it in green or I could do it in white, and I think I'm going to do that as a center front tie at the top of it. And I'm leaving the front open. I am going to put handholds for to reach out of from both the cage and the cape itself. Now that they're all lined up, I'm going to pin it down, put the two pieces over the top, so around the edge, and then flip it, and then finish the edges. That's the plan. I have to press it before I do. That's what I want to do next Tuesday. So, yes. Okay. Michael Snow, Bone Folder. That was my wrestling nickname from my old college days. Bone Folder. The Bone Folder is confused why you don't know where you put me last. It is such a WrestleMania name. I love it. The Boulder. The Bone Folder. Looks cozy. Okay. So, I think I'm going to call it a day with this project. I do have to press it. I've been trying to do everything live, but I may end up just doing that not live because ironing is not like the most exciting thing to watch, but it's like the most important part of sewing things is the pressing. Yeah, but I'm also getting distracted by this project. Told you the skirt's not attached yet. I love how it's really full but no gathers. It's because this layer right here is a full circle, and then this layer is two circles, and they're the exact same size circle because I cut my radius of 4 inches for the lining out, and I cut each half circle with a 4-inch radius. And then for my outside fabric, I cut 2 whole circles, so each of my half circles I cut with a 2-inch radius. And then when I put all my circles together, they ended up being all the exact same size. And it turned out super floofy, and I think it turned out really cool. top that's going with it. I haven't fully figured out what I wanted to do for my closure. Originally, I just wanted to do a zipper, but I kind of am like leaning towards buttons, except for my heart-shaped buttons are red and not pink. So it's in a stopping point, which is good. So I think it turned out really nice. But I'm working on a lot of projects, and I'm not really filming these ones because they're not like for anything other than just my own self accomplishment. I finished this, you know? But I will show you guys the progress as they get finished because they've been fun projects that I've been working. Yeah. So I had fun today. I got my cape put together. Next week I will put the armhole flaps in, and then after that it's the fun part of just the decorating. We're to the fun part finally, the decorating. But next week we got to get the armholes because we need to be able to wear the thing for reals. Any questions before I leave? Because I think we're about ready to call it a day. On time to go sand my van front bumper for repaint. Yep, get that tooth worked in there. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I had a blast today. We made progress on the crazy cone cape. It's getting better. A little worse before better, but I like it. And we'll work on it again next week, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.